Yeah.
Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to the launch of Carbon Under Pressure by the wonderful Meg Heart. We are delighted and honoured to be here. And if you haven't heard about Meg Heart, where have you been? You know, you're going to learn so much with this amazing in conversation with Lee Hare and Martina Sheehan. We're going to share all about this amazing project with you all. And the thing is, as a publisher and as I interview many authors, I am usually sitting here with the person whose name is on the book, but today I am not. And soon you will find out why. But first, let me introduce these two amazing ladies. Lee Hare is the founder of Meg Heart. She is passionate about real stories that create real change. She is an advocate for people who want to break their silence and expose some of the raw and painful secrets that too often go hidden in our society. She believes people are powerful voices for change, and she works tirelessly to amplify their voices. She created Meg Heart as a that's not going to come out the word a pseudonym, there we go, for these stories to be told, and Carbon Under Pressure is the first book to be published under this pseudonym. Amazingly, we'll get to know Lee in a moment, but Martina Sheehan is a ghostwriter. She worked with the woman whose story is told in Carbon Under Pressure to craft this beautiful book, and it is a beautiful book. She is the author of three of her own best-selling books and has many other strings to her bow. Martina is joining us from Italy. She was on a trip there before the pandemic began and she decided to stay. So she did all her work on Carbon Under Pressure from there. How amazing you two women are! My goodness. So we're going to
Thanks,
get right
Karen.
into it, okay? And Lee, without giving too much away, can you tell everyone what Carbon Under Pressure is about?
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. Well, Carbon Under Pressure is about Rose. A woman wakes to a nightmare and is thrust into a race to save 3 lives. She actually recounts events over 3 years in her life. She's an ordinary woman who faced extraordinary circumstances. In the book, she discovers shocking secrets hidden deep within inside her family and takes us all on a roller coaster ride of emotions with brutal honesty not often found in a book. It's raw and it's real. Unfortunately, most people who face circumstances like Rose soldier on in silence. She did for many years, but now she has decided to tell her story. For those who have never experienced what she went through, the book lifts the curtain on things that we all should be aware of. It's only when someone speaks up and pulls the curtain back that we are motivated to change our society. Rose is a voice for change, and we hope the book encourages many people more to break their silence and many more people to listen. Thank you.
Oh, the power of story, hey? It's absolutely magnificent. Thank you, Lee. So Martina, as Lee says, this book is about Rose, but that is not her real name. You worked with her on the creation of this book. Can you explain why she has remained anonymous?
This in itself is a whole other story, isn't it? That one day
It
maybe we
is.
could write about. When I met Rose, it's more than a year ago. She was beginning her writing journey, and it was a story from the moment I heard the first words that I just had to be part of. And we worked together for since then, basically, to create this story, to craft the words, to turn her really emotional experiences into something that would grip other people in the same powerful way that I felt I was gripped from the word go. So we got to the point where it was finished. We were ready to move it on to the next phase, speak with you, Karen, get published. And quite rightly, with the story like this, Rose received advice from her lawyer, got the manuscript reviewed, and a couple of events that happen in her story were subject to gag laws, which some people will have heard about, laws that ensure that certain events that happen in a legal environment are not shared willy-nilly. Of course, we'd changed all the names of this book, but initially Rose believed that she would be okay to publish the book under her own name. But then she discovered that she couldn't do that with these particular events. So she really faced three choices. She could just have given up at that point, which probably many people would have done, because it's not simple to move through these processes. She could have taken the events out and told a lesser story, but she decided that there's no way that a story like this should be held back. It's the whole point of sharing your stories, isn't it? To help other people to understand what things happen in life. And a story like this, and I totally agree, has messages for people who have been through something like this and who haven't been through something like this. And there's so many things about Rose I wish I could tell people, but because she's anonymous, I can't. But one of the things is her determination and her courage to say, this story deserves to be out there. I don't need to be known. And when Lee stepped up with the pseudonym Meg Heart, it was just the perfect solution to ensure the story reached readers, but could also be out there to start a conversation about some of the things that our world needs to talk about, some of the tough stuff that often goes hidden in silence. And so that was a great solution. And it's quite interesting that Rose must remain anonymous for legal reasons, and we will always protect her anonymity. But it's almost ironic that in being forced to remain silent about who she is, but also be able to talk about the story so openly, and for us to all advocate for that, it brings a bit of a purity to the message. When you read Carbon Under Pressure and you don't have a picture of a particular person in your mind, I think what happens is it brings up any sense of familiarity to some of these situations that might be happening to people you know. I mean, Rose seriously could be any person that you or I, anyone knows well. She could be a friend, a sister, a stranger who you interacted with today. She's an ordinary woman who faced very, very challenging situations and worked her way through it. And people are doing that all over our world in silence. So I think when people read this, you will all know someone who might remind you of some piece of this story, and it will motivate us to say, what can I do? What more can I do to help in this situation? So I think there will always be the question, who is Rose? People will ask this, but I don't think it's a necessary question, because the story is a story that could be true for any woman. And I hope people see it that way.
Wow, Martina, thank you. You've articulated that so beautifully. And as the publisher who has the honour of publishing this book, every single time I speak about this book, I get goosebumps all over my body. This story stays with you. It absolutely has to be a movie. I've never been so certain about any book in my life. You read it and you go, this has to be fiction, and it's not. But my goodness, and I am so glad that that Rose found Lee to bring this to us, because Meg Heart, the pseudonym of Meg Heart, is going to help bring so many of these stories out into the world, because there's so much power in stories. Stories are so important to share, and this book is that. It can be any person around us, or can be us. We will all find and identify with something in this book. Martina, you're so right. And when you read this book, it will shift something within you. There's nobody that everyone I know who has read this book, it has just shifted something within them. it ignites something within you in some way. You may feel a little discomfort, but we all need to advocate for Meg Heart. We need to give these stories a voice, and it takes people showing up and having courage to do that. So we want everybody who's watching this to join, go and check out the megheart.com, where you can be part of this to help stories get out there. And Carbon Under Pressure is a very powerful debut book for Meg Heart. Absolutely. So huge, I hugely commend Leah, but Martina, you have done an amazing job to bring us on the journey and to have someone's story be shared in for us all to read it and to you've just done an amazing job. So huge kudos to you. Well done.
It was just I think some people who are listening too, I'm sure many write or want to write, or a lot of people would have a story to tell. Sometimes there are stories that just tell themselves. And this was one of those. It was to hear Rose speak, to see her words on paper. I've worked on other books that are hard work. Everything can be hard work. But this is a story that almost channeled itself. And that tells me it wants to be out there. It needs to be out there. So.
Absolutely. And it just calls you to action. When you hear the story, you're going, I have to be part of this. I have to be part of this happening, because stories are what help people heal. They help you connect. They help you. They just connect people, and that's what we need. And I'm going to go on to Lee now. Thank you, Martina. I'm going to move on to Lee, because Lee, through Meg Heart, you've taken on the role of speaking on Rose's behalf and representing her for all the public events. Okay, you even have a TEDx talk coming out soon where you speak about the impact of living with secrets, and that's what I really wanted to touch on here at this moment. Can you tell us about the talk and about secrets, please?
Certainly. Thanks, Karen. The TEDx talk, well, we're still waiting for it to go live, so hopefully it'll be in the next month, which will be great. I know from my own life experiences that holding on to painful secrets pretty much undermines our mental health. Well, it did with mine. So, and secrets can be fun. It could be innocent holiday romance or a joke with a friend. But when traumatic things happen in our lives, it can really trigger negative emotions, in particular shame. Shame is the most poisonous one. Shame makes us believe that somehow we're deserving of our fate. So we suffer in silence. And holding on deep inside, where it eats away and just destroys our well-being. Research on secrets shows that the link between confiding these painful secrets and an improvement in your overall well-being. So telling someone about things that we have suffered, like abuse, trauma, cruelty, or anything that causes us anxiety, is the first step really to healing. And given that the average person, can you believe it, has 13 secrets, there's a lot of us keeping a lot of pain buried deep inside. So helping more people break the silence is one of my key motivations, or the biggest key motivation really, behind starting Meg Heart. Confiding helps people heal. But when we share their stories, they can show others that it's possible for them to heal as well. And at a societal level, when people break their silence, they can trigger real change. Look at Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, for example. I mean, by breaking her silence, she and those that have helped her have been instrumental in spreading great positive change. And I want to advocate for more powerful stories of change. And I think Carbon Under Pressure is a great start to that. So, and we're keen to do many, many more.
Oh, there's lots to come and lots of opportunity. And to think 13 secrets, it makes my brain go, oh my
Oh,
God, where are these secrets?
mm,
And I know I have a few, but whenever you hold a secret that's damaging, it even has health implications. So it does really it does you need
mm,
to find the courage to share, and
yeah,
shame is a big one. So huge. Yes, it's important.
definitely. It's been
So it,
linked with depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. So it's so important
yeah, it
to
is.
break the
Like,
silence.
yeah, mental health in our society is a big one, and secrets are a big thing, and I don't think as many
Mm,
people realize it. And
mm,
so, by breaking the silence and creating the opportunity to relinquish and release what we're keeping within in a safe environment, which Meg Heart now is, um,
mm,
is 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 serving so beautifully. So,
mm.
on that note, I would really encourage everyone to sign up for the newsletter at megheart.com, because this is the start. And we highly encourage you to grab a copy of this book and to understand the magnitude of what's happening here. And to read this story and go on the journey with Rose is quite a privilege and an honor, and also quite eye-opening. So to think that that's happening in our world, and it could be happening next door to us, or in in someone's home. So, and if it is in your home, then you won't feel alone. So this story is so vitally important. So I have watched some of the TEDx talk. So watch out for that coming as well, guys, because you do not want to miss that. It is, wow. I was giggling and crying at the same time in this TEDx talk. It's amazing.
Yeah,
And like
amazing job.
really and truly, the whole Meg Heart, the whole megheart.com is something we need to get talking about by keeping conversations happening and be an advocate for that. So if you really want to be an advocate for Meg Heart and to help us help Lee spread the word far and wide, then, please do get in touch with myself or Lee or Martina, and we'll help guide you that way, so it won't be so time consuming. But Martina, can just before we finish up in a few minutes, can you tell us how a ghostwriter works with people? You know, we I've talked about it being turned into a movie. Like, how does that
Yeah.
happen? Because I know by reading the story, you feel like you're there.
Oh,
But
so true, so true.
mm,
I remember right at the beginning, I said, I think it's one of the first things I said to Rose is, I can see your story as you're saying it, and as I'm reading this first, dump of all her experiences that she put down. It was powerful right from the beginning, and I really could see this, and I thought it's almost like I wanted to see the movie before I wanted to write the book, read the book. But as I wrote it, it was like watching a movie. And it's seriously, as you said, there's so many things happening. We don't want to give anything away, but there is so much about this story that I felt like, could this even really happen in a movie? Like, it was just, but it happened, and I know it happened because part of a ghostwriter's role is not just simply to write words, but it's to really examine the story, to understand the full story, not just some of these events that maybe an author initially wants to tell, but to really investigate the life of this person.
mm,
So I did, I did investigate a lot of these scenarios. I looked at court transcripts. I know what happened in this story was true. And in doing that, I suppose this is the role. The ghostwriter has an objectivity to the experience that's very hard for an author themselves to have of their own life. There are many reasons people might ask a ghostwriter to be part of their team, and it can be that they've never written something before and they're not so confident about putting these words on paper into a book. It's not, most of us probably would go, oh, I've never done it before, so I can't do it. But that's not true. We all can. It's just a matter of having some experience and guidance. Some people are just too busy to write their own books, but they really want it to be out there. But there's a huge value, I suppose, in having someone who looks at your story from the outside and can almost see the pattern of it. So with Rose, a lot of it was about, okay, so this happened in these 3 years, but there's a backstory to why some of those emotions arose in her. And so we really talked a lot about other parts of her life, and I drew out much of what happened to her in her whole life journey to bring context to the book. So we do go back and forth. It's about the 3 years of particular events, but we go back and forth in Rose's life and make sense of a lot of her experiences that way. It's my full-time, my luck to have the full time of my life to think of words and to think of ways to express things. So I am able to maybe coin a sentence in a way that someone else who doesn't spend their time doing that would think to do. So, my co-writer back in our author days, Susan Pearce, used to always say, it's like you beautify what we write.
Yeah.
And
You do.
That's what I love to do. So, as a ghostwriter, I love to bring beauty to the words, that emotion, to be sure that the reader feels what the person actually did go through. They're not just words on a page. Books are emotions. And so that's, what a ghostwriter can do. And as I said, ironically, we're usually anonymous. Most ghostwriters will never be known, or you won't even know one on a project. My other projects, so no one knows what they are, who they are, and that's the interesting twist in this scenario. No one knows Rose. She's anonymous, and I'm not. So it's a funny little juxtaposition for this particular book that I would be here talking to you.
Isn't it? I have to admit, being a ghostwriter is like what you do is like magic. You take a story and you deliver it to readers, and I always say it to someone who's writing a story. You may have to write it, but sometimes the reader doesn't need to read it, and it's just to know that, isn't it? Sometimes there's things that you have to write in parts of your story that you feel are important, but the reader, it doesn't add to value to your book, but it does add value to you to write it, isn't it?
Yes, that is so true. And I think as Lee has reinforced here, that the Meg Heart, principles, the whole concept of not just having one book come out with a pseudonym Meg Heart, but to say, hold on a minute, this is just the tip of the iceberg of people whose stories are kept deep inside, even when they might be ready to take that step of telling someone and move through a healing journey. Rose had reached that point too, but by writing her story down, she went to another level. I watched that happen over that year that we worked together, where her healing went even further. By writing her story and having to articulate it, she was able to understand her experiences in a whole new way. And, whether people, through what Lee's doing with Meg Heart, actually want to produce a book, or whether they simply want to go through a process of writing their story to reach that new level of understanding of their own experiences and healing of that. I think that whole gamut is what is going to happen. We're going to see that come through under the Meg Heart sort of banner of just write to heal, or take it the next step, share your story, or take it the next step, start a conversation in the world. Let's advocate. Let's move this further. Breaking the silence is something I'm seeing happening everywhere, and I think it's timely that this is another way that people can join.
Amazing. We have to break the silence. Yes. Lee, please share. I know that with this book, it's been getting rave reviews, and you have shown up, and you have created Meg Heart as, at the foundation of stories like this being shared. So can you share with us about the feedback you've been getting about this amazing book?
Well, we've sent it out for reviews, like the advanced reader copies, and we were just like we knew it was pretty special. And I think the magic happened when Rose and Martina connected. I think they were just such an incredible bond together, and you can just see that magic was happening, and we knew it, but it was just wonderful to get the reviews that it was unputdownable, that I just couldn't stop. Tegan, I'm just trying to remember, she sent a message saying I'm 100 pages in and I can't put it down. I've got to meet people in 1 minute and I don't want to go, but my husband's forcing me to go. Like
It is that. It is that.
And it was just incredible. And there's actually one other one I really want that meant a lot as well, was from Dr. Chris Cantor. He's retired, a retired psychiatrist, but he's also a published author as well. So, and he specialised in PTSD and also led the suicide research back in, I may be wrong, 80s or 90s. Anyway, he came to me and said, Lee, so many people send me things on mental health, whether it's movies, books or documents or whatever. And he said, they say to me, you need to read this, you'll be interested in this. And he looks at it and says, it's just sensationalized. It's, dramatized, it's not real. And he said, it impacted me so greatly reading your book that it came across so real. As a psychiatrist, it is real. It's not dramatized. It just speaks from the heart and it's real. And then as an author as well, he said it was written so beautifully. And that's the magic. That's the magic that Martina adds to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, can I share a landing page that we have on our website for this awesome book? I'm just going to share it quickly, just so everybody can see. We have a nice landing page. It's tmdbooks.com/carbon under pressure, and it's just where you can see everything. This interview will be here, and I don't know if you've seen Lee on Ticker News. She was amazing. The recording will be in there. She was amazing, so impressive. And then I'm interviewing Lee on the 19th of November as well. And we've already been featured in a few places, and I know that this featured in bar is going to fill up pretty fast. So watch this space, everyone. But Lee, I know that you have a few people you want to thank before we finish up.
Thank you. Firstly, Meg Heart. Meg Heart wouldn't be Meg Heart without an incredible team behind the scenes or behind supporting us all. And incredibly, they're all these amazing women. So Martina, of course, she has just helped, like she's an integral part of it. And you, Karen, who's helped us bring this book to the world. I also want to thank Susan. Susan actually, back when she actually got Rose started with writing and supported her. And she was actually the one that connected Rose and Martina together, which is fantastic. But then there's some other women. There's Pravita, Alice, Sam, there's Simone, there's Kim, and also Candace. They've all just been behind the scenes supporting us. But there's actually one extra special person I want to thank, and her name is actually Rose. She's not Rose in the book. She actually has been a massive support to Rose, and that's why Rose actually chose the name Rose in the book, was in honor of her. And she supported Rose in telling her story while also keeping her safe. And I know Rose feels really protected with Rose by her side. So thank you, Rose.
We all need a Rose in our lives, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah, our safe haven. So anyone who's watching on the live stream, thank you so much for watching and joining us. As I said, go catch up with this amazing foundation is going to be. In my
Yeah.
mind, it's a foundation because
Mhm.
we're going to everyone's going to come together and make such amazing things happen. Go to megheart.com. You can grab the book anywhere really where books are sold, and there's lots of amazing links. And just we'd love to hear your thoughts whenever you read this book. Please share with us your thoughts, and if you connected or if it resonated or if you shared it with a friend because you knew they needed to read it. We need to have the conversation, because in having the conversation we share the story and people need to read it. So let's be advocates for this. So thank you so much to everyone on Facebook for watching. Anyone who's in our attendees, there's a link coming so you can join us here for an after party. So to everyone who's watching online, bye guys, and thank you for joining us.